Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Near Memo with David, Mike, and Greg. And we talk, as always, about local search, social, and commerce, and anything else that comes into our heads at the moment that we're speaking. Today, we're going to be talking about three pretty different things. We'll start with Mike and audiologists, or Mike,
almost. You almost got it. You almost got it. Audiologists is what I was calling it.
Audiologists. Mike will tell you what that is, and I'll be talking about the introduction or the growth of content bots for local news and the implications of that. And then David is going to conclude with a discussion about Facebook shuttering neighborhoods, its next door clone, and generally Facebook's failures in local from the consumer on the consumer side. So, Mike, over to you with audiologists.
Sure. Or as I tried to name it, audiolopocalypse, which is very difficult to say as well. But there are 13 or 14,000 audiologists in this country. Many of them run very small, value-added audiology practices, which are very dependent on a high margin combination of hardware, software, testing, and training. And starting this spring, Biden ordered the FDA to review this market. The FDA released a ruling in August that said as of October 16th, you can sell hearing aids over the counter for people over 18 and for low to moderate hearing loss, which 1 in 4 adults over 60, I think, have hearing loss, but the bulk of them is low to moderate hearing loss. So it's a huge market that's going over the counter. And what it means, it has somebody who's been used to sell in a value-added way, combination of hardware, software, training. I sold computers as a small independent computer dealer. I mean, basically is the demise, it might take 10 years, of the local audiologist. And if Apple's announcement of the new AirPods yesterday plays into this. There's long been very good rumors that Apple will get into this market, which to a certain extent will change the dynamics of it over something like the eyeglass market, which you pointed out in the early talk was not hurt by cheap reading glasses, even though Mike buys them by the dozen. But because Apple sort of dominates the style high-end market here, I think that this is a case where it will be taken over by large national firms, if not Apple, somebody else.
Well, or several Bose is in this market already.
Bose is already in the market. Jabra, I think, is in the market. There's a few others.
Exactly.
And there's some very sophisticated products. And it's just going to change the whole model. And all of these local audiologists either have to move upstream, but are unlikely to be able to sustain themselves as independent businesses. I think that the world of their existence as independent businesses is done. And they better recognize that and go get a job at a local hospital, which is where the higher end of this is probably going to take place. So I just think the whole dynamic of it is interesting. Watching it happen in other industries is a little sad for me because I've seen it happen in so many local businesses, but I think it's certain inevitability to it. And I'm looking forward to AirPod Pros for my wife, who has certain mild hearing loss. So there you have it.
Well, I'll take the other side of the announcement, I guess, which is I am a very, very recent convert to AirPods, maybe I've had them for about a month and a half, if that. And I personally, and I got the cheapest possible version. I happen to think that the sound quality is more than adequate for pretty much anything you want to do, potentially outside of like wanting to listen to classical music concerts 24/7 on your AirPods. And so I think that there's still going to be a market. I agree, Mike, with your overall thesis that the over-the-counter audio enhancement market is probably going to be a challenge from a professional standpoint. I'm not necessarily sure that Apple or Bose or the higher end folks are really going to win the market. I think that probably somebody, I don't know if Amazon has something like this, but something like an Amazon Basics hearing aid, I think is more likely to win most folks in this over 60 demographic who need, a 25% bump in the amount of sound they're able to hear. I just don't see people spending unnecessarily, $500 on AirPods Pro Plus, just because it has like this extra level of, sound quality that these other lower end
Well,
models
the
can't achieve.
AirPod Pro 2 came out at $249, so which I think is, but I think the market will segment. I think your point is really well taken. I think Amazon will have an $89 product, and I think Apple will have a $259 product. Interestingly, my son, who is an audiophile and used to listen to Spotify, because he ended up with some AirPods as part of a free iPad deal, switched over to Apple Music to gain advantage of the spatial audio and convinced his sister, my daughter, to do the same. So it's just interesting that there are people at the higher end of audio that really do care. And it actually is driving sales for Apple. So it'll be an interesting dynamic to follow. And I think you're right, though. It will be something like somebody in the low end, somebody in the medium like Apple. And people will maybe Bose, try to take a space above Apple, but I don't think they're going to have a lot of room there.
Current, let's call them non ugly hearing aids are from Jabra and Bose and a couple others, and they're sort of a more minimal or more like an earpod kind of form factor. They're all uniformly above $500, $700, $800, $1,000. Price is going to drive the bulk of this market, and so $250 is a deal in this space. Suddenly, something which seems like a luxury, if you need it as a hearing aid, assuming that it evolves into that or has that capability, that's going to be a no-brainer, right? So, and I think that Amazon will get into this market and do something at the low end. But I think the volume in the market will be driven by the best device for the lowest cost. Whoever comes up with that, that's
or the
probably
profit,
going to be
rather, maybe not the volume. I mean,
well,
think
no,
Apple
I mean,
will take the profit in that market.
Consumers are going to buy the cheapest device for the lowest, the best, least expensive device, whatever that is, right?
But it plays very well to Apple's move
Strengths.
into healthcare,
Yeah.
into their value-added design, all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So it'll be interesting to watch. I think we're right at the beginning of it. Could, like I said, it could take 5 years to fully transition, but it'll be interesting to watch because it's so reflective of how software eats hardware.
Well, there'll be some.
Oh, sorry.
Go
I was going
ahead.
to say, as president of the Tinfoil Hat Society, I would be remiss not to mention the potential privacy implications of big tech companies getting into listening devices, and particularly those that may be attached to more powerful hardware, like, say, an iPhone, that may be listening into conversations that potentially the folks on the other end wouldn't want these companies to be listening in on. So I don't know if there's...
Right.
We had the same concern. We had the same concern with the Google Glass and the Facebook, whatever it's called, in terms of just capturing everything in the owner's field of vision, but not getting permission from the folks that are in that field of vision.
Well, this is the danger with all these products. I mean, I think that there's whether or not people intend to use them in these kind of predatory ways or to exploit them for whatever set of purposes, at marketing purposes or data collection. If you look at China, that whole, all these technologies, facial recognition, location, are being used to surveil and monitor the population and to suppress dissent, right? Essentially.
Welcome to the future that only Howard Lerman, President Xi, and Mark Zuckerberg want, that you have no desire to be in.
Right. And so I think we're not going to roll back the technology. And so what we need to do is have really strong privacy rules, which hopefully will be coming. And just, people need to be vigilant. You need to have really easy privacy controls on these devices. People need to understand what the implications are. I mean, and that's what the post-Roe abortion and location discussion has been about. People now really see the implications of being tracked physically. And, so I think, we're not going to...
I see this as, I guess I see this as one step more difficult to regulate, though, because that stuff is all, the owner of the device is the one being tracked. In the case of a hearing aid or a Google Glass, it's not the owner of that device. It's other people.
It's everybody else.
who haven't given any kind of consent one way or another.
Right.
Even
Well,
with
I mean, there
the
is
opt-in, checkbox. It's just they don't even know.
There is
President Z says, "Is that David's voice I hear?"
Exactly.
In certain states there is a law against being recorded if you didn't consent to it. So presumably those rules would protect some portion of these people. If you're out in a public street and you're taking pictures, I don't know how that plays out exactly, but that's a conversation for another day.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.